How I use LinkedIn to sell. Hi, I'm Lucy Griffiths and I talk about all things online. And that means when you build an online audience, you need a place to sell. And you can use social media, you could use Facebook ads, you could use SEO, you could use YouTube. There are multiple ways to sell your products and services using and embracing the online world. Now, there's organic traffic, which comes from people finding you organically. And that might be by doing a Google search and finding your YouTube video or a blog post. Or perhaps they come across you on social media, whether that's through hashtags or just because somebody's commented on a post or they recommend someone. And so that's organic traffic. And for me personally, at the moment, one of the best ways for me to embrace social media, build an audience, and also continue to sell, because at the end of the day, I'm a business owner, so I need to be able to sell, even if my posts aren't salesy, is LinkedIn. And I really love LinkedIn because it is such a community. There is nowhere else quite like it. On Instagram, you might see some posts, you scroll, you admire the pictures, you might drop a heart, but that's it. You might occasionally pass comment on something, but it's just more a sort of, you're just visually spectating on something. Facebook groups used to be a place of interaction and engagement, but I have to say, I don't really like using Facebook anymore. I feel just icky, and I have never found my people on Facebook in the way that I have done on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is very much about, it's, professional, there's business owners, but there's also a real community, and you don't have to just talk business. In fact, the kind of post that I would put on Facebook, I put on LinkedIn. So I'll talk about myself personally. I did a post about being boring this morning, and I talked about my previous life working as a journalist, and now how my life is really boring. So it's not necessarily just about, oh, this is what I do, this is who I am, this is the job promotion I've had, and this is what you need to do. It is about building engagement, sharing content that is fun and engaging. And the more that you can build that engagement, the better your posts will be. So ask people questions, talk to them, and you don't have to be that kind of corporate Colin where you are just very much focused on just kind of, oh, so-and-so got a job promotion, isn't that great? You don't have to be that person. And as a business owner, it is excellent to sell. Now, most of the time, I am not selling. Now, this sounds counterintuitive because actually LinkedIn is such a great place to sell. But what I do is I am sharing those kind of personal posts. I will share a post when I go swimming, or if I'm going camping with my son. I will also share about if I've got a group program coming up, or if something about my membership that's going on. So I will share those things as well. But it's very much about engagement. So I am, focused on posts that are sort of interesting and fun rather than just pushing a message. So you want to think of yourself, rather than being a broadcaster where you're shoving a message in someone's face, you are very much, it's a two-way conversation because it's social media. And so if you can build that community where you're commenting on people's posts, not in some kind of pod or whatever, you're just literally, as you scroll down your feed, if you don't like a post, press those three dots to get rid of it if it's boring. So you bring in content that interests you, inspires you, that you find fun, engaging, whatever it may be. So bring in that content, and then as you do that, you are then very much being like, oh, you're bringing in that community, you're chatting to people, and that builds conversations. Now, as you build your audience, now I've built my audience probably in the last 18 months. It's gone from about, let's say 1,000 to about 14,000 in so I'm not like somebody who's like stratospherically grown on LinkedIn, because you can do that and you can really blow up. But I'm much more about, I'm a business owner, I've got other things to do with my day, but I will try and post consistently. So what I do is I post at 6:30 a.m.-ish. So I try and write a post that's new and how I'm feeling that morning, and then I post it before my son wakes up. And so I can have a little 10 minutes or so to just get some engagement in before he wakes up. He tends to wake up about 6:30, so I try and get it in before that. And then I'm very much focused on him. So I'm getting him ready for school, I'm doing all those things. If I have a chance, I will comment on some posts, but that's not always possible. It just depends what's going on. So, and then during the day, I will hop back in, I'll reply to comments, and I'll go and comment on more and engage on more posts. Now, the more engagement you can do, the better. I myself am busy. I'm a single parent. I have lots going on. I don't have as much time as I would like to engage. So I don't always. I will spend, 10, 20 minutes, but I know that if you really want to blow up on LinkedIn, you could spend 3 hours a day. Now that might seem like, oh my goodness, but you could actually really go for it. Blow up on LinkedIn, really engage. And by doing that, you are going to build more followers. So when you get more followers, the bigger audience you get, actually what then happens is that more people see your content and they're engaging, they're getting to know you. Now, they're in a professional space. This isn't Facebook, where I find on Facebook, there's a lot of people who maybe have hobby businesses where they do something on the side, or they'd like to make a bit more money, but they're not really, they need to go and check with their partner. And that's all fine. I get that. I used to be that person who'd have to check with my husband if I could spend any money on my business. But what I'm saying is, on LinkedIn, there's less of that. It's much more, actually, it's kind of focused, it's professional, and it's less time wasters. So what happens is you build an audience, you're just chatting to people, and I really very consciously make it fun, make it chatty. I'm not kind of always in worky mode. Last year when I was going through my divorce, I was very, very vulnerable, and I just shared how I was feeling. And the only thing I did about my business for 6 months was literally to talk to people on LinkedIn. And, sometimes I'd say I feel awful, or about going through a divorce and the messiness of it and all that stuff. And I very much tried just to be me and show up and just be raw and real and how I was feeling. But what happens is, as you do this, your content gets seen, and sometimes you might have a piece of content that is nothing to do with your business. Like, I wrote a post last year about being bullied at school, okay? And it blew up, it went crazy. And I literally, on the back of that, probably grew my number of followers by about 1,000 from one post. But I probably had 10, 15 requests in my DMs for like strategy sessions and one-to-ones. Nothing to do with the post or being bullied at school. But the relation is that when people find your content, they start seeing you, they start taking notice of you, they like you, and then they want to work with you. And so it's this kind of weird contradiction between you showing up, you building an audience, and then actually that can grow into something else. And so you don't have to share about being bullied at school or being as vulnerable as perhaps I am. That comes with, it comes with time. In the beginning, if you'd have asked me that 10 years ago, if I'd have been sharing that stuff, there would have been a no way, because I was like, oh no, strict boundaries. Whereas now I know what I'm going to share and what I'm not going to share. So for me, I can share things about myself and even things that are quite vulnerable. But I'm careful about, I never ever talk about anything, like I'll talk about my son, but I won't talk about my wider family or about any other stuff that's going on. And, I might certainly avoid certain topics, divorce or whatever. I will mention how I'm feeling, but I won't talk about the intricacies of it. Oh, he's done this or she's done that or whatever. I avoid that. And so, you can pick and choose the topics that you talk about, but it is a much, much, much more effective way to sell than sending people a DM into, you know, those awful DM messages where somebody's trying to sell something to you does not work, okay? It point blank does not work. You know, it is the worst way to sell. If I get one of those messages, like it's a cold message from someone I have no idea about, then they just go immediately get muted and go to archive. So, you know, you might be paying an agency to send 3 messages and it just goes in the bin. So the best way that you can do this is by really showing up and by really consistently building that audience and, you know, building a presence, because it makes such a difference. And so the more that you can do that, the more that you can just be yourself, build that audience of followers, it makes a huge difference. I remember I was at a networking event the other week and I met an accountant. I was talking to the accountant and I happened to mention, oh, you know, I think you could do really well on LinkedIn. And I started talking about a friend of mine, she's a former client, Jerry Williams. And immediately they all knew who she was because they'd seen her posts on LinkedIn. And that's the power of LinkedIn, that you can achieve so much when you build that audience, but you have to build the audience. And that takes, you know, it does take consistency about posting. It also means, you know, putting yourself out there and commenting on other people's posts. And if you're scared to post in the beginning, then actually by just engaging thoughtful comments on other people's posts, if you were to spend half an hour a day doing that, it would be much more effective than sending those spammy messages in the DMs, because people get to know you, and then once you've got to know them and you're commenting a bit, then if you send them a personal message, they've built up a relationship with you, and so it's much easier to then sell to them. So the more that you can, you know, show up and be you and just share who you are, what you do, the easier it gets. But it's about showing up, being vulnerable, being prepared to be you. And the more that you can do that, the easier it gets. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. I share lots of tips and strategies to help you build and grow your online business. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.